and see how well that. Okay, good. I did not want to do a recording to the cloud because I know that CCS as of yesterday or day before yesterday was running pretty close to its 5 gig limit. I think it was over 80% full. So I will record this thing to my local machine here, which should be okay with a terabyte. Okay. And then I can upload it later and then send it to whoever needs it. Okay. Wait a couple more minutes here. Anybody have any open forum questions? I see Dennis just stepped away here. He's got a great pattern here in the background. So like I said, I just went and set this machine up a couple of days ago and decided, well, it's been sitting around here long enough. Let's move the laptop out of the way, move this in and start it up and see what it does. Oh, and it fired up right away, came up with Windows 11, and it was running happy, and everything except for one minor detail was Windows 11 21H2. So just a little bit dated. So it complained, oh, guess what? You have a lot of updates that you need to apply here. You're running security issues. This operating system is no longer supported. Yeah, so I had a plan of attack, and most of my plan of attack coming from my Windows 10 experience has been install the things that you think may not be supported under the newer operating system when you upgrade. That way it'll inherit it from the previous operating system and it may succeed. Because I had problems trying to get Windows 10 64-bit to even accept on the newer, on a new one. It wasn't a 1903, it was a newer release, one of the 2020 releases that came out. And it would not accept my HP printer the ways I was trying to get it to accept it. What I ended up doing is going to another Windows 10 machine that had the printer already configured. And inside of the printer, you can back up your entire printer configuration, put it into a file, take it over to another machine and restore it, which is what I did. And that's how I got the driver installed on the newer version of Windows 10. So I thought the same thing's going to happen with Windows 11. So with the older version, let's get all this stuff installed. Then we'll do the upgrade and see what falls out. So that was my plan of attack. And it was a little bit trying, and my presentation will show some of the steps that I tried to take to go forward on it. But let's see, somebody else joined? No. Okay. But it was still fun. Okay. Let's see. I don't see Mr. Kaikis here yet. I don't know if he's busy today or he's unable to join, but normally he records. But I'll record here, and then we'll make sure I have a copy and I can send it off to whoever needs it. So I guess that Wayne has had problems with his Zoom, but he finally got it answered when he installed the new version of Zoom. Maybe I was just as fortunate by waiting until Zoom 6.4 to load up, because that's what was offered to you when I first installed Zoom, and it came up right away. Do many of you run into the problem where Outlook wants to do upgrades to the new Outlook?
Yes.
You've seen that, Carl?
Yes.
There is, if you have a copy of Outlook already that you run, the Outlook.exe program, you can turn off the offering me new Outlook or saying, I'm going to switch you to the new Outlook on the next reboot. If you go into File, Options, General, go all the way to the bottom, and there's a little checkbox that's there that says New Outlook, uncheck it. And it will stop offering you the new Outlook.
That would have saved me a week.
Yeah, on my other laptop here, it had fired up and it forced me to the new Outlook. I said, no, I paid for the other Outlook. I want my old Outlook. Yeah. So I was able to get it to force it back. And like, what a pain in the butt. don't let this happen again. So I had to go find the option. Since I'm not using Outlook in Windows 10 or 11, I'm using Microsoft 365. That's my Outlook. It's the one I'm paying for. Don't mess with it.
Yeah, I wish I'd known that because they forced it on me, and
There
I'm not going
is,
to
if
bother
you
to get
look
rid of it.
around, there is ways to force it back, and it will convert back. I mean, I have old Outlook saved files and other things that aren't really tolerated too well by the new Outlook. And I'm sitting on about, upwards of 6 or 7 gigabytes of saved emails on my Outlook account that, I'm not going to have this go away. I want to be able to access it, search it, do those kinds of things. And the new interface, it's as bad as the new Yahoo interface, which I can't go back on. Yahoo.
Yeah, I'm a victim of that too. I rolled it back to classic, kept pushing it back, and they
Yeah.
finally cut off that option. Now, once in a little while, they say you can't use this version either because an ad blocker was detected. In other words, they try to put it stuffs ads inside of every email message you're reading.
I know. That's why
it reads it, then puts up an AI summary and tries to prevent you from reading your email. So
you were free Yahoo, or you paid for the Yahoo?
Free.
Yeah.
If you pay for it, you get rid of some of the ads, but it's still going to do all that reading and AI training on your email.
It still does things like that. Like it puts up what it thinks I would want to see. Like, you have a package coming today, or you haven't responded to this email. Clear this highlight. Clear this highlight.
They not only do highlights, they also do notifications, which are pasted over what you're trying to read.
I think I have turned off all the notifications, so it's doing okay in that respect.
Yeah.
But I use Yahoo via a web browser.
Yeah.
Okay. And
right.
I still am unhappy with the fact that you can only have you can't just expand the whole screen. They have to have something on the right hand side. So this is a waste of screen real estate.
Well, that right hand side, if you're doing nothing to filter out ads, that's an ad.
Right now, it's just showing all of my starred messages from about 3 months ago because I cleared all the recent starred messages.
Well, if I weren't too lazy, I already pay for fast mail, and it's not going to do that to me.
Yeah. Well, I kept the Yahoo account, and the thing that was most disturbing was trying to find where they'd moved the settings to so I could go into the disposable email addresses, because I have a number of them set up. One of them is the Zoom account that I use for my personal Zoom account is a disposable email on Yahoo, because if I ever start receiving spam on that, I just burn it and set up a new Zoom account and put a different address on it.
The other thing that they've done that is really super annoying is if you have sent mail that some of your drafts go down into sent mail. I like to get my sent mail back into my inbox at some point. And that movement, they don't have a provision for it.
Oh, you can't move sent mail into inbox or into a backup folder?
Into a backup folder that you make, yes. But
okay. Yeah.
But trying to move it to their inbox, you really could break something trying to do it.
Yeah, I think so, because I'm thinking about that. I've never tried to do that particular aspect, but I have when I've archived messages by year, when it's several years old and I don't have immediate access to it. I'll drag everything from that section down and say, okay, move it on over here. Or sometimes I decide I'm going to go through and prune off advertising from 4 years ago. So I'm trying to select everything that's old and then delete. Louis. Yes.
I download into Clause Mail and then periodically just empty out the webmails.
Yeah. At one point in time I had hooked up Outlook 2010 to my Yahoo mail and saved it into archived into folders, but there was too many problems just trying to access the Yahoo email. Oh, now you have to use a special password on it. Now you have to do this with it. Oh, we don't support that anymore. Like, okay, fine. You guys argue. I will just use my web browser for it. And then
in Yahoo, I don't think I've done this, but Gmail forced me to have an app password for closed mail. For Outlook, I don't know if it'll do that. It's the type of security that they want.
right. Did you notice when the Outlook went down several weeks ago?
I didn't notice because I don't use Outlook and I don't use Office. I use LibreOffice and I use other kinds of email.
No, the apps were working. It's just that Outlook itself, the servers had a major conniption.
Yep.
And they reported it as an outage. And I just happened to notice right away when it's like, okay, something is not right here. I'm not seeing, 1,400 spam messages come through today. Obviously, something's not working.
Yeah, Microsoft has an Outlook. Well, must be just another Tuesday.
Between that and the spam I've started receiving for a long while, I got very little spam on Yahoo. And then all of a sudden, the floodgates opened, and there's like 60 or 70 spam messages that show up out of nowhere. And occasionally the one or two that filter into the inbox and said, no, that's still spam. Burn it. Because I can usually recognize that from the title or something like, and then you hover and it tells you the address, like, oh, your Yahoo account is going away. No, it's not. You're not Yahoo. You're lying to me. I mean,
yeah.
But I'm doing all the talking here. Who else has brought a question today? Anybody else have a question? You can raise your hand. Okay, Bert.
Well, that's not a question, but something people should be aware of, that the beginning of May, Microsoft Publisher is going to disappear. And if you have any files in there, you have to move them over to maybe Word, or it depends on the kind of file. But there's tons of things in Publisher that you forgot about, including all kinds of documents, signs, all kinds of different templates. And so you would have to, there's no way to automatically switch everything over. You would have to go through hundreds of things to be able to recover it and get
Did they say they were going to actually remove the Publisher app?
Yes.
Or were they just going to?
No, they're going to remove the app.
So if you already have the app loaded on your machine, it's going to delete it?
It's going to stop working.
I just wonder how that would work
or something like
versions.
That. It's not the same as what they did with other apps,
okay.
Where they convert it or they just stop updating them. This is that now on Publisher. So they're just going to turn it off.
Well, that's interesting. I'll have to
There's
see how
another thing that came through today that I hadn't known about. I use OneNote all the time, but over the years they made OneNote, which is part of a desktop, and another OneNote that they wanted to bring up on the web. Well, everybody liked the desktop one and not the web one, so in 6 months they're going to delete the web one.
So if you're using the web one, you're out of luck.
Well, or you got to move your stuff over to the desktop one. Now, I don't think that app is going to disappear, but it's not going to be updated anymore. But I just saw the announcement for that today.
Yeah, interesting. Put that down. OneNote and Publisher. I mean, on my Win 7 machine, it would default to the screen grabs going into OneNote. I think when I had it installed, it would automatically take over. So if I did the Shift Window S or whatever, it was like Window S was all you needed to do on Win 7. Then it would pop up the capture, and you would figure out what you wanted to snapshot.
I think you probably have to put all your OneNote files in OneDrive.
Yeah. That was the other thing that I noticed when I did this upgrade to putting in this Windows 11 machine on my regular Microsoft account. So it fired up and it brought up, it did not grab my settings from OneDrive on the other computers. Instead, it decided itself, oh, I'm going to start backing up your files and making them disappear off of this machine. So I brought down a couple files like, I just brought that file down. Where'd it go? Oh, it's over in OneDrive. Oh, it's backing stuff up. Oh, it's making them disappear off the hard drive. Stop.
I've noticed
So
something else lately because I have multiple email addresses that it's setting up OneDrive for each address. So
yeah,
sometimes you don't know where something went because it went in a different OneDrive.
well, I have the same address, but the vision of OneDrive off of the off the Windows Explorer is different on different machines. Okay, so and on my machine, my Win 10 machine, where I have OneDrive that's basically don't back up anything, don't touch anything, leave it alone. You're here as OneDrive and you're syncing nothing. I don't have a documents folder over there. I have a pictures folder and there's another folder or something in a personal vault. I go on this machine, there is a personal, there in the personal, there is a documents, there's a pictures, and there's that something else. So I have a documents folder on this OneDrive that's not on the other OneDrive, and they're both using the same login.
There's also sometimes you've got things that are in your local drive, and that's where they put in the ability to back things up
It might be
different
in
kinds
the
of
local
folders.
copy on that drive. That may be what it is, and I'm not syncing that folder anymore. It's possibly there because if on the other machine that doesn't show it, if I log into OneDrive web, I can see the documents folder.
But in Windows 11, you can set it so they'll at least back up the ones that are on basically the C drive, your local drive, into at least their backup. But generally, I only use as much as I can in the OneDrive.
It's just that they have a strange concept of what they think backup is. Backup does not mean grab the copy, move it to a cloud drive, and then delete it off of your copy here. No, I want it to stay here. Quit making my files disappear. It's harder enough to find it. That's not what I would term backup. That is migrate. Put me in the cloud. Okay, take everything off of this hard drive and make it like there's nothing here.
Well, look at all the space you get when you don't have everything saved on the regular drive, on the local drive.
Well, you're never going to be able to find it anyway. Yeah, there's something about where do you hide a tree in the forest? Okay, that's a good place to hide it. But it just once I realized, oh, it has some of those things being backed up. So I launched the backup icon or the OneDrive icon that said, turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, done. Okay, so nothing is being backed up anymore again, and that's the way I'm going to keep it. If I want to put something there, I can drag it and put it on the OneDrive, and it'll move it up there just happy. And that's fine. Do it just like a Google Drive works. If you're going to give me a terabyte, let me manage how I want to use it. But it's just bizarre. Make things simple for some people, and then you're trying to explain how some of the stuff works to somebody else who's never seen it before, and they're completely baffled.
Well, you can always have an external drive, and save
I
things.
have plenty of external drives.
I mean, instead of the local drive, basically use the external drive like a local drive. And if you don't want to use OneDrive,
I got 8 terabytes over in the other room just waiting for me to copy stuff over the network directly into it. I mean, I don't even need to plug anything into this. It'll just squirt it right up there and it'll park it on there just fine. Use it for backup and whatever else I decide to use it for. Copy all those downloaded videos. They're all over there. Yes. But yeah, I chose to have a backup unit that does that. And that way, when their cloud goes down, my cloud doesn't. because there's been a couple instances where sometimes the cloud access isn't always there. Some of their servers have a problem, like Outlook, or even OneDrive has had problems in the past too.
Well, it's of course good to back up your OneDrive to an external drive once in a while.
Well, that's true. The one thing about this is there's nothing to. I did find out one place to park things while I'm installing machines that OneDrive doesn't touch. Doesn't touch the download directory. So if you're doing something in between while you're installing stuff and you want to park something, but you don't want to make a copy of it forever, or you want to choose when to make a copy of it, keep it in the download subdirectory. If it's in downloads, that is one place that it appears that OneDrive doesn't even know about yet.
You have to be careful when you're doing the clearing your internet temporary files, not to delete your OneDrive, your download folder.
I never have it touch all of the setups on my when I try and do the clearing. If I have CC Cleaner or something like that, I do not let it touch the last download location and download history. Leave those alone. Yeah,
that is fairly standard practice. In fact, on Chromebooks where you are basically working out of a downloads directory, if you do anything locally, they would never touch that for cleanup.
Yeah.
By the way, related to all this migrating stuff to the cloud, in getting new Comcast service up at my new place, I'm moving for those who are joining the video. My new Comcast service, the DVR, has moved from local storage to the cloud. That happened a few years back. But now it's always cloud DVR. And the only remnant of that set-top DVR, it was about this big. Then it went to this big. Now it's about this big. Pretty soon it'll be the size of an Apple Watch, I guess. And that's all you got locally.
Although the recording of the program is done kind of bizarre. If you have an outage of your internet while you're trying to record, your cloud recording is also affected.
Not anymore. Not with the new X-Fi. It was that way up until very recently.
You're using X-Fi. I'm still using the X1. And with the X1, because it's going through your box to get to, so if your box has an outage, it's not going to record your recording, or your recording will be truncated. Yes.
You're right. That was true all the way up through X1. But X5, that's why they have this teeny tiny box, because actually you could, by using a function called DVR sync, you could allow for the cloud to continue to record. But it was opt-in, and I think it cost extra to be able to do that, or to have enough space up there. Anyway, I also pay for the extra DVR capacity, and then I turn around and never watch anything, because I've got nice, lovely meetings like this with real people to attend. And where I'm moving, there are real people around.
There are some things I need to record that all happen to operate at the same time. I'm going to watch Colbert, I'm going to watch Kimmel, I'm going to watch Seth Meyers, and I'm going to watch The Daily Show. And they all seem to overlap in our time zone.
Late night is like that, and some primetime shows are like that. And
Although
if you're doing
I'm willing to give up channels to do this. Like if they wanted to take News Nation or Fox Business or Fox anything, that would be okay. The local Fox, the local Fox channel is not quite as bizarre or ludicrous as the Fox network is. Fox network, I don't know where they make this stuff up.
I don't have time for that sort of thing. I get enough of a taste of it with the Yahoo stuff that I get, that poster board that they've got before you get into your email. Although, I can go directly into my email, but then I'll still see some of it as sort of banners and things. And they'll say, hey, take a look at this. Get involved in this discussion. Because, that's where social media companies make money. But anyway, this whole thing about going to a cloud service and moving your files from locally to the cloud, it applies as much to the entertainment things I'm doing as Bert, it is applying to what you're doing with Office and very business-like things.
Yeah. I mean, even though I'd have access to using the Microsoft 365 in the cloud, it's just the operation of when it's in the cloud only wants to store files on your OneDrive. It doesn't want to store anything to your local drive. And that's a pain in the butt. So that's why I said local apps here. Some of these things I don't need the internet, or if the internet's bouncing up and down, I won't care about it because I can just unplug it and go ahead and do what I need to do. And if I'm on like a UPS or a battery operated laptop, and the power's flickering, that doesn't affect me either. I mean, although my internet service is on a UPS as well, but it's got a limited life depending on what I plug into it. If I just have the cable modem and the router plugged in, then I'm okay. But when I plug in the X1 box, the lifetime of the UPS goes down a lot.
Yeah. With the phone service that they've got now with Comcast, speaking of battery backup, they now do have a 1-day battery backup available.
Oh, they extended it to 1 day? Wow.
It will cover 1 day with X5 and their phone service. X1, I do not know whether it does.
How big a battery do they have to supply with that?
Well, it doesn't take, their device anyway, doesn't take any kind of extra power to run your phone service. It's just that the function stays up and running even when the regular Wi-Fi is not available. So it's basically running in a very low power mode.
So does your X5 have a cellular backup and a battery?
Not a cellular backup. They have changed how their network operates.
Okay.
The network itself contains some power, the way your old POTS phone service used to.
Well, they would talk about that when I worked with the group who did the very first cable modems for Motorola. And they were talking about doing cable telephony as well. And they were concerned about the power requirements on how much power they were able to put down the cable to be able to power the remote end units in the event of supplying 911 service was its primary goal, being able to have that. And the question was, can you do an amp at 80 volts or something like that? And how many devices can you support out there? So they must have some really low power stuff, and they are able to power it. I mean, if it's off the hub out near in your yard, that can have a lot more power going through it. But when it comes down to the actual unit inside your residence, you have to have like a copper link all the way out to that hub, because you're not doing fiber anymore unless they run a pair of wires with it.
What they're doing more and more with X5 is, again, they're moving to the cloud, they're moving to wireless. So I think the phone connection, the final little piece, is wireless of a sort, but it's not cellular spectrum.
Okay,
It's
so
indoor.
you mean
It's indoor
okay.
wireless.
Okay. So it's still used. I mean, you could run a access point router and use other bands. I mean, the problem is Ethernet is not, and wireless Wi-Fi isn't the most efficient in terms of power. You got to play games to make them last as long as they can, especially if there's no traffic, because that thing is constantly going back and forth. Your DTIM is set to 3 on most routers, which means this thing is communicating with all of the devices in your house every 100 milliseconds. It is sending out, everybody who's connected to the Wi-Fi has to respond to a handshake if there's any traffic for them. And if you don't respond to the handshake within DTIM, 3 handshakes, then it will declare you as you have disappeared. You're no longer on the network. You can make as long as 10 to save more power. That means you can wait up to 10. That means a second before you have to respond. That means you can go into a deeper sleep and have a much longer battery life. Then the latency for those connections is also extended, and that can be atrocious sometimes.
I kind of misspoke. They still use the old-fashioned phone wiring, and the phone wiring comes off of cable at some point inside the walls. So it
Okay.
is wired, but it's wired, I think, separately from your internet. If you had Ethernet, it would be separate from that. And they've just simply gotten more efficient at managing the resources, and they can
Mhm.
back up part of the network without part of your cabled wired network without keeping the Wi-Fi going and everything like that. So
Yeah,
there's
we have that kind of we have a setup at church where we have the phone wires are Comcast and the Ethernet is a separate. And they share off of a Y off of the cable that comes in from the street.
yeah.
So there's two boxes, and it's not like two cable modems, because if you've ever tried to run two cable modems at a residence at the same time, it doesn't work. They are using the same frequencies, and there's no provision for a first cable modem, second cable modem. They
Yeah.
can't like
Mhm.
offset each other. So the pass bands are the same between those, and the ones that they reserve for the telephony are on different frequencies, so they can share a Y. I mean, I could make a splitter that's really a circular combiner instead of a splitter, which actually means that one doesn't interfere with the other and they can communicate with the third port, but that's not the way they have it set up. They have a simple splitter, 3 dB splitter, so each signal goes down by half, and each one gets half of the signal, and they're happy with that.
Yeah, the
We
fact of the matter is if you're splitting off voice service versus some other part of it like television services, you can give the lion's share to the television services, partly through quality of service management.
Yeah, and I've seen that done too. The other thing that we had for a while was a cellular backup, but the cellular backup was LTE,
Mhm.
not next generation, anything else, no
Yeah.
5G. And it was rather slow.
Hmm.
It was maybe 300 or 400 kilobits per second speeds, not anywhere with the megabytes.
Hmm.
The other thing was really obnoxious about it. It could do IPv4 or IPv6, but it couldn't do both.
Yeah.
So if you have a router that you're trying to deal with, or it's trying to do, basically, it was only supposed to come in and be used when there was no cable service, and this is your limp home mode.
Yeah. Of course, now there is at least the possibility of going over to what used to be cellular, but now it's fixed wireless access that uses the 5G various parts of the spectrum. And
Yeah.
that has much more robust capabilities.
Or if they use some of the 5G frequencies that are normally not being used by residences, some of the 60 gigahertz and some of those, if
Yeah.
you have point-to-point setups, they can set those things up and use higher bandwidth and backhaul services that way from like building to building if
Mhm.
you're in an urban area.
But the downside, of course, is you need line of sight access, and
Uh,
and you don't
for
want
the most part,
building
you need line of
materials.
sight, but you can use some of the there are some things that you can rely on. You can go around a corner with some of the very high frequencies because it will refract. It'll hit the corner and refract around it.
Right. That's one reason why in urban areas they will use the very high frequencies, whereas in rural areas they'll use the big towers and the low frequencies.
Yeah, but then there's the other thing they have to take into account. If it's above 7 gigahertz, you have to account for rain fade.
That is a problem they have to deal with. I don't think they're quite up to that range. Indoors, yes, but outdoors, no, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Um, with the old, they had the old Altair service that Motorola developed, a point-to-point microwave, which is now Cambium Networks. So I was working with some of the people that invented some of that, and I even used for one of my real old meetings here with Northwest. I actually had a setup where they had two of these Cambium network transceivers, And it was a 10 megabit per second link that you could balance, either be 80/20 or 50/50, depending on how you wanted to set up the link. But normally the range was 1 mile non-line of sight, 2 miles line of sight. But if you were to put these units at the focal point of a dish network dish, and you used it at both ends and aimed it at each other, and you had line of sight, you could do 35 miles.
Oh,
Yes. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. If you ever want to see that presentation, I could probably dig it up sometime.
Now, don't forget, in the Boston area, they were also developing that sort of thing, and it was an outgrowth of the radar development from companies like Raytheon. And there was a hill not too far from where I live that used to be one of the sites where they had an antenna mounted.
Well, this was interesting because when we first came up with this, they were using some of the 5G Wi-Fi band areas for their transceiver. So the point to multipoint, this had two versions, a point to point and a point to multipoint. The point to multipoint ran at the lower frequency, and the point to point ran up at 5.8. Of course, it was also licensed to use more power than you're allowed to use on your 5 gigahertz laptop and routers and such. This one had a little warning on it that says, while in operation, do not place face in front of it. Because it had a 1 watt power rating on it, which is about, let's see, what is it? About 6 dB more than a typical laptop or a router can use. Let's see, your maximum power output is actually 40 milliwatts. That's the maximum. And this was running a full watt. Okay, other questions? Everybody else came with answers? Okay, there'll be a pop quiz at the end. Okay, I had, let's see, what time is it? Well, I can actually go ahead and we can see if this, I'll start the presentation and then we can see if there are questions after it. All right. This is not router upgrades and caveats that it says on the label here. I don't know how it comes up with that decision on what that is. That's not what this is. This is Windows installation, Windows 11 installation, Murphy's Law version. Okay, let's put my cursor in here and there we go. So several days ago, I finally decided to fire up this little B-Link mini PC that I had, and it's been sitting here waiting for Windows to finally get with all of its updates in place before I would fire it up so that I wouldn't have to have a lot of growing pains with it. The keyboard and mouse came from somewheres. I think I've had them for a while. And the speakers, I realized I needed it before I fired up the Zoom for my wife's Zoom session that she has on Wednesday morning. I reused the monitor that I had purchased so she could have better visibility of it. So that's a 27-inch HP monitor. You're looking at it down, so that's why it looks kind of weird. So this is what the specs on that mini PC is. I mentioned this in a previous presentation last fall when I purchased this thing. So the capabilities of it is it's up to 4.4 gigahertz. It's 8 cores, 16 thread, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a terabyte SSD. It's got an 8-core graphics AMD chip in it that is with the processor. So it's not a separate entity. It's part of the processor and the unit plugs in. M.2 SSD. It has Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2. It has HDMI port, a display port, and a USB port for display purposes. And it was about $300 when I picked it up. It was all DDR4 memory.
Mhm.
It's very similar to an N100 unit, except this one's using the Ryzen 7, and it's got a little bit more snap to it. The power is nice and comfortable at 35 to 40 watts. I can feel it just coming out a little bit warm out of the back of this thing, but for the most part, it's, relatively cool compared to what I'm running. It came with Windows 11 Pro. The power adapter looks like a USB charger on steroids. It's a 19 volt, 3.42 amp, very similar to what HP laptops use, except it's a little bit different barrel connector. And it's got a respectable pass mark rating. Picture of what these things look like and some of the ports that are available on it. It has 2 USB ports in the front, a USB 3.2 and a USB 2 in the back. And I had put in a USB 3 hub into that to extend those. So fired it up, and it started with the Windows 10 installation. I had researched whether I wanted to attempt doing this without a Microsoft account and do a local admin. And I thought about it, but then I would have had to try and figure out how to turn the wireless on and off while I'm in the middle of an installation. And I didn't want to try and do it with a wired connection running about 75 feet of Ethernet cable across the room to do this. So I just said, I'll register it with my Microsoft account and see how it goes. The OneDrive settings for what I mentioned earlier were ignored, and it started doing those backup of those files until I figured out what was going wrong. Initial installation was a 21H2 or R2. That's not H2, second 2. A AMD video chip did all of a sudden take down a little bit of the usable memory in the machine. And if I had thought about that, I probably would have gone to a 32 gigabyte or more memory size. And this is an eye chart right here, but here you can see right here it says 11.9 gigabyte usable. This is a screenshot after it came up. I had no problems doing the screenshot. I had to do this after I got Microsoft Outlook Word I installed. It says here the manufacturer is AZW. That clicks on and goes to the B-Link website in the US. So what do I install? What install first? Usually, since I prefer Chrome to Edge, and I save certain things with my Google Password Manager, it's just easier sometimes. I started there. So let's download Chrome. And then I realized what a pain it is to try and make Chrome your default browser with all the things that are owned by Edge. And I wanted to convert back, this, these belong to Chrome. This needs to go to PDF Reader. Oh, I don't have PDF Reader. Let's go get PDF Reader. Download PDF Reader. So good. And it wanted to install the PDF editors extension into Chrome, and I had to say no. So, and then it was installing Microsoft 365, and it was installing fine, but then it just got stuck at 97%. And I did some web searches that said, is this okay to go to 97% and just stop there? They said, well, go and check and see if your stuff actually installed, and then you can reboot your machine. And I did that, and everything had installed. Just got stuck for some reason, not sure what, but after it came up, it then started applying updates October 2023, October 2024, and still no option to get beyond the 21 H2. So before moving up, I wanted to get my printer drivers installed because I had found problems with newer OSs trying to load the older printer driver. So my brother printer driver installed without problems, but the scanning apps might not port. So I may have to figure out what I'm going to use for Control Center 4, or just have a scanner driver loaded and see if that works. The HP LaserJet was a whole other issue. Windows Update, refused to find the printer. I had a cab downloaded and I re-downloaded it from the Microsoft Update catalog, but I was trying to remember what the name of the program was that expanded a cab file into its component atoms, and it was called expand.exe, but I did not try and type that in a command window because of the location of the files, and just I didn't remember what its name was. What was that name of that thing, and where was it? Used to be on the CDs that was on Windows XP someplace. So anyhow, Google AI said, oh, you just double click on the cab file, copy all the files and paste them over to another location, which I did, except it just pasted everything that was in there into a single directory. Didn't create any folders or anything else. That did not work so well. It just said driver not found when I tried to use it. Then I said, well, let's try the HP Universal Smart Driver, which is supposed to use and handle almost anything HP with the PCL. So I installed that, but the only thing my old LaserJet 4000 did was said, protocol error every time I tried to print a test page. That didn't work, so uninstalled that. I searched around for that printer driver not installed, and the system cannot find the file specified error. So I found a procedure that said, go look in the Windows INF directory and look in the setup API .dev.log file to look for the error message. And I saw in there that it was looking for the A64 directory, and it's looking for the 64. There's no directories in this cab that I expanded. Okay, so I went and pulled the cab file up on one of my Win 10 machine, uses 7-zip and expanded it out, and it created the folder name and a couple of things. This is what I want. So I drug that over, and then all of a sudden the have disk worked with trying to find the printer, found my HP 4000, loaded it up, and it was happy. And this is what you see inside of the cab file. So on the top listing, it just shows the cab file, and then if you expand it, it creates its own directory, and inside is an AMD 64, and inside that AMD 64 is another 100 some odd files that are in there. And this catalog and the INF file, that's basically where the HP driver list populates when you do look for an HP driver that's an older HP. That's not just one HP 4000. It's like 100 different HP printers in there. Whole lot. Okay, still, Windows did not offer any of the new OS builds. I'm thinking, how do I get a newer build? And I thought, well, let's just see if the health check readiness app, what it says. App says you're already running Windows 11, obviously. So that was no help. And I also installed the latest sysinternal suite because of things I'd seen. I wasn't sure if it was downloading everything. So I forced the upgrade to the latest Windows 11 by using the Windows Installation Assistant. And then it says, oh, you want to upgrade to the latest version of Windows? Yes. So clicked on it and said, it's going to take 30 minutes. Took like about 10. And it said, okay, I'm ready to reboot. Okay. So I rebooted and away it came. So I got it up on 24H2. Good. That's what I wanted. Everything else was pretty much okay, except some things started not to play so well. Here's some of the updates that came through after the initial 24H2. And you just look at all these things on this eye chart, and it said, yeah. Oh, that's a display driver. Oh, okay. There's a Bluetooth driver. There's an EMD driver. It's updating drivers. I wonder if that's a good thing. Well, after it had updated this, my AMD drivers could no longer be communicated with the application interface that was part of the application programs that were running on this version. So if I did right click on the display, and one of the things is access the AMD driver interface. And it said, comes up and you say, you have this error message that pops up. AMD Radeon software and drivers do not match. It's like, okay. So they tell you how to check what they're supposed to be. The driver was at 31.0.1277.9001. The app software expected 27.20.22.001.1411. That's a little bit of a difference between those two. So I saw one suggestion online that had a YouTube videos. They basically just went in with registry edit, found this key, and he patched it to use the 31.0.1277.9001, but I was not optimistic on that change, and it didn't do anything different. So I changed it back. And then I found this site to help resolve it. On an AMD website, there's an FAQ that says, get drivers with AMD Auto Detect and Install tool. So I downloaded that, and it updated the apps to match the driver. That's what I needed to do. So I was able to do that, and everything was hunky-dory again. It has some options on the AMD driver set that allow you to play with things like, do you want it to operate in performance mode? Do you want this to operate in power saving mode? Right now, I'm using it in pretty much power save mode. So don't use a lot of power. I mean, display the graphics, but we're not going to be doing a lot of rapid changing of something like gameplay at 100 hertz. So the other thing that in here and the update, these are the updates that then did come in after that. So it updated to the March 2025 update with the cumulative update, and everything went through. I haven't even let some of these things go through on my other machines, but I decided, well, let's go through it. It said there were some driver updates that it had done. So those are the driver updates. Yes, it had updated the display, and that's the number right there of the one that I saw on my driver. So the problem had been generated by the installation of 24H2. Okay. For the most part, that was it. I installed Zoom, and immediately it was 6.4.0. And I was thinking about some of the problems that we've seen on on CCS. I remember what Harry had Rain had the problems with it, and thought, well, I hope I don't have any problems with it. But then I realized I did not have any audio output. I thought, oh, there's no speaker inside of this little tiny B-Link like most laptops do. I need to have a speaker and a microphone. Well, the microphone isn't a problem. There's one in the camera. But when I plugged the speaker in, I realized I'm plugging in the 3 connections on a 3.5 millimeter plug and not the 4. So I don't have a way to plug in. There's not a separate jack here for a microphone. So if I want a microphone, I either have to use a USB mic or I have to use a splitter with a microphone connection on it. And then the other thing, when I was running either Zoom or Teams, I had to realize the audio is going out the Realtek interface. The audio in is coming in from the camera. So you got to make sure you have your audio going in and out of the right places. Most of these tools like to default to the same device. I did do a speed test, and it said you was able to get 200 megabit per second. It said it was connected at 400 for the raw speed, but it said 200 megabit was actually what I was able to download. 40 megabit per second uploads. Haven't used a gigabit link on this, but I did notice that in the last week and a half, Comcast has said, oh, we've increased your speed again, have another 100 megabits. And they also gave me twice the upload speed. So I was at, one time I was at 10, then they moved me to 20, now I'm at 41. So I haven't tried it on this to see what it can do with 16 threads and see if it's a little bit quicker or not. And finally, this is the place I mentioned at the beginning. If you don't want to outlook to offer the switch you to the new Outlook app, this is the place you want to uncheck. So you go into File, Options, General, scroll to the bottom, and there's a little box at the new Outlook options. Uncheck it. And once you do that and place OK, it should stop offering Outlook to you, at least the new one. And with that, do any questions? Okay, let's see. Let's do ahead this. Let me go ahead and find my folder here from, nope, file there. From
While you're doing that, I should mention it's not just your part of the country. It's fairly common for Comcast to be offering what they claim are upgrades in your speed. In practice, especially if you use a wired home network, it's not that much of an increase.
Well, I think all they're doing is basically going into your modem, because you don't get the speed unless you reboot your modem.
True.
So you reboot your modem, and all of it, you're playing with the throttler, because it's just trying to limit you to the speed at which they want you to go to and not give you too much more. Typically, when I'm on a wired gigabit link, I get between 75 and 90 megabits per second faster than what they've claimed they've given me.
Yeah, especially with the new X-Fi, it's capable of multiple gig inside your house as well as to the street, but they don't enable that capability by default. It's not just so they can make money, it's so that they can match your speed with your, they detect your usage and your typical usage patterns. That will influence whether or not they'll increase.
Yeah, I know that they had restricted before. They wanted me to upgrade my cable modem because they basically said they were moving beyond the 4 up and 4 down to go to 32 down and 8 up, I think is what, or 16 up. I think that's what my current cable modem is capable of. And until everyone upgraded on my area, my chain where I'm at, that you would be limited on your upload speeds, and some of the download speeds could be limited as well. I haven't seen them go beyond this. I know that one thing that would restrict me is the fact that I'm using one of the old Comcast Unity cable amplifiers. I can't remember the name of the manufacturer, but it came in either a 5-port or an 8-port. And it was all unity gain, did not amplify, just basically took the signal and made 8 copies of it at the same signal strength. And it had an extra port that was an unpowered link that was a 6 dB loss, but it was a unpowered link in case if power failed, you would still have a connection through that, usually for a cable modem or for a phone connection is what they offered. And this basically would also support, Ethernet over cable, the band that it uses for the upstairs unit or something. If you're cabled, that uses Ethernet over like 900 megahertz coming on the back channel, so it can do bidirectional communication with the X1 box. But that particular box has a passband from 50 megahertz to 1 gig, and below 50 gigahertz is supposed to only go upstream. The downstream is supposed to be 50 to 1 gigahertz. They're changing that with the faster interfaces to go 0 to 75, and then 75 to a gig is what will go down. But I don't have one of those, so I'm filtering out anything in the 50 to 75 that might try to go up. But it has not run into any of those problems yet. They haven't called me and said, you can't, your X1 box is not going to work so well unless you take this box out. And I said, well, if I do that, you're going to have to run me an RJ11 line from the street because I have too much loss with the RG59 or RG6 that you gave me. That's what I have RG6 cable that goes from the cable box in the front, comes all the way around the side of the house to the back corner of the house. It's about 110 feet. And 110 feet at RG6 at a gigahertz is a pretty significant loss. If you do RJ11 cable, you have much lower loss, but the downside of using RJ11 versus RJ6 is the center conductor on an RJ11 is too large to plug into standard coax jacks that you use for RJ6. You have to cut it short. You have to solder on a reducing adapter pin and then use that to plug into those cable jacks. That's why I haven't had them do that, because then they'd have to do work outside. And I would probably have to do work inside. You got a question,
I
Wayne?
see. Yeah, I see on Amazon, the B-Link with the 32 gigabytes is $4.99.
Yeah, it's got more stuff in it too. I think it
Yeah.
was a 2 terabyte as well.
No, it says 1 terabyte.
Only one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know that when I purchased mine, it was on sale. It had like
Yeah.
about a 20 some odd percent off when I purchased it. And it was a spur of the moment thing. I said, I should try one of these and see if they work. They
Well,
do work.
the one you got is listed at 276.
Yep, yeah, yeah. And that may be the perfect thing I decide to use when we need to replace some of our Windows 10 machines that we have at church. We have a number of those machines that are going to go out of support in October. So what do I use in that case, to try and migrate their stuff off? If they're running a dual Windows 7, Win 10 boot, they still use some things on Win 10. And as soon as I can shut down their Win 7 machines, I'll keep a legacy machine there to run Win 7, but the rest of them will all get converted to Win 11. And I'll migrate their stuff across to that at that time. But yes, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, but going back to that place on Outlook, I went there.
Yeah.
And when I'm down there, it says enable linked features in my Office application. Is that the spot you're talking about? That's
No,
under
let's
general.
see. Let me pull it up. Options, general, and let's see. It's LinkedIn features are above it, and below that is new Outlook options. If you don't have new Outlook options shown, then it hasn't tried to offer you new Outlook, or you're already on new Outlook.
Well, I've got in Outlook, I actually have a button in the upper right corner that says try the new Outlook, and I've got that button clicked to off.
Okay. I will do a share and I'll show you my screen right here that shows me that. Okay. Let's see. I think that's this one. Is that it? Yes. Okay. So here is mail. Here's general. And here's the top right here. So I slide down here. And right here is where it is.
Okay, I do not have that.
Oh, this is, let's see what version this is. Hold on. I got to go back. This, where is it about? Let me do this. Help. Help about. Where is about? And it's going to hide. Oh, they're not going to tell me the help about anymore, are they? Let's see. Is it going to tell me the stuff here? No, it's not. It's going to sit here. And I don't want it to collect logs. Go back to File, Options here. There is Account Settings, Mailbox Settings, Rules and Large Man Engines. This is Account Settings. Here is Options. Let me see this real quick. Of course, they've moved stuff around again from the last time I've tried to look for some of these things. No, I'm not going to do cleanup. Here's options. Let's see, does it have in here advanced? Show apps. It's not going to tell me the version, is it? Trust Center. Trust Center settings? No add-ins. Usually it has a thing in here that it'll pop up and tell you what versions they are. And I'm not going to have that easily accessible, am I? Let's go back to advanced. Usually it's in. All right. Options for working with Outlook. Nope, nope, nope. None of these things are the ones I want. And it's not in Trust Center. It's only under General. Here, under Mail. Is it going to tell me there? Nope. Cancel. Go back to File. Access the account on the web. Nope. Doesn't have a thing that's going to mention this at all, is it? Here. Nope. And this is an Exchange. And you're using an Outlook.com account too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
that's not. Okay, let's go back to here. Okay. Help. Here. Let's do the help and see if the help has anything here. Let's see. No, it was not helpful. To manage troubleshooting. I wonder if it's under troubleshooting. Nope. Version. Yeah, top of page. On the About Outlook button. Okay, where is About Outlook? Use classic ribbon. There, good. Okay. Help. Support tool. Nope, help. That's just the same thing I had here. Doesn't say. I'm looking for the About, and it does not have an About. That's not real help. File tab, Office account. That's what I want. Okay, File, Office account. All right. Account settings. It's still not going to tell me anything there. No help. Let's see. Manage profile, change profile. Nope, nope, nope. None of these. Yeah, it's not being here. Maybe it's here. That's what I wanted, right there. Ha ha ha. Okay. All right. About Outlook. There's the About Outlook. Okay, so this is this build 2502 16.0 18 526 20 01 68 64-bit.
Okay, well,
So
let's
if
see
you're
what I
running
got.
an older version, you could probably see if there's a newer version to update.
See, office account. About. Let's see. 2502 1601 18 526 201 168 32-bit.
You're running the 32, I'm running the 64, but other than that, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is very interesting.
Now I
I
got
wonder.
this version of because I'm in Microsoft 365.
And I have it as well.
Okay. It's just looking for differences.
No, it
Well,
does not show
I don't know.
through Outlook.
Well, as long as it doesn't move me, I'm happy.
Um,
Maybe
so-
just because I've got a thing turned off in off on
I have
the,
it turned off as well.
yeah,
Okay. If the try your new Outlook toggle isn't appearing in your classic Outlook, ensure your Microsoft 365 subscription is up to date, your Windows system is updated, and you're using a supported account type, such as an exchange-based work or school account, Outlook.com or Gmail. There is a way to, there may be something that it thinks it's either an unsupported account. Let me show you the thing that I'm going
yeah.
to stop the share, and I'm going to move the share to
I
this
bet
web.
I know. It just came to me. I'll bet I know why. I'm in Windows 10.
No, it's in Windows 10 as well,
Okay.
because I did the same thing on my other Windows 10 machine.
Okay.
Because I saw it, I found it over here, unchecked it, ran over to my Windows 10 machine, found it there, and unchecked it as well.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
I'm using the same Outlook 365 account on both because I'm allowed to download 5 copies. And I don't even have to set up another user to download another 5 copies.
Hmm.
That's the one thing you can do with your personal Outlook M365 is to install your one on the same user ID. You can install it in 5 places. And then you set up another user like a family member, and they can install it in 5 places. And you can do that 4 more times. So technically, you can do 30 copies of Outlook of Microsoft 365.
And in that screen
So
you're showing right now on the bottom right-hand side, it says if you don't see the toggle switch, is that anything there?
yeah, right here.
I meant
Your
on the
IT.
far right.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
You may be using an account that's not yet supported. We can look it up, but that's from 2023.
Hmm.
So I kind of doubt whether that's still, I think it's working on, here's your, 1809 is long in the tooth for Windows 10. Yeah. 2004 is the last build of Windows 10. So I don't think it was that.
Yeah. And that I have kept up.
Yeah. So,
Just
and
hanging on to this laptop till it dies, then I'll move up to the next Windows.
does not just, let's see here and see if this is on a specific machine with special, but other machine, it's fine. All right. Check to updates. Yes. Repair Outlook. That's a little scary. You can do a repair install. Okay. Like going into the apps, and when you try to sort of uninstall it, it'll do you want to do a repair instead? And you can do a repair. Then there's a registry edit to hide new Outlook toggle, so you can actually enable it and then you can disable it type of stuff. So there is a registry edit here. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go over to, I'm going to stop the share here, and I'm going to post this into chat. All right. And then send. So there is another place to look to see if that is why you don't have it. You could check to see if the registry entry is there, and that'll give you a hint why maybe it's not showing up or could show up. But when I found that, I said, this might make my life a lot easier. Unchecking this and keeping it from doing an update, because when I fired this thing up with Outlook on the updated 24H2, and I ran Outlook and it said, the next time you load, you're going to get the new Outlook. And he said, no,
No,
I must stop it now before I have to run Outlook again. So I did the web search and I found some of this stuff. And I said, I found the box. Go be back behind me, Outlook. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
You can try that and see if that works. That might be an answer. Like I said, it's kind of strange that we both have the same version, but we have different results between the two. That's kind of bizarre, and that's Microsoft's fault, I think, because they're the ones that decided to do it. But if I was going to say
see that.
But right now, with me running Zoom and all this stuff, it's barely coming out of the I don't even know if the fan is running. I can barely feel any heat coming out of the back of this unit. Pretty cool. I haven't tried to see if I can run one of the Nursoft tools or one of the other ones, Specky or something like that, to see what the temperature is of the chip, see if it can pull that out of it or not. I'm sure it shows up somewheres. I'm not sure if there's a settings that show temperature. I'm not sure. Temp. No, it doesn't. It just has temp. No, there's no temperature mentioned here at all. There is one thing that it will show me if I use the AMD software, and they call it the Adrenaline Edition. This is the tool that would not function when I tried to do this before. I'll share that. So they have this thing that can pop up. It basically does not have, like, it thinks I've opened Alien Isolation and I have run no games on this yet. Okay, so I don't know where it's getting some of these numbers from. But on the home screen, it does show basically CPU utilization, GPU memory, GPU utilization, CPU, and system memory utilization. So it's got some similar to what sysinternals can show, but it doesn't. I don't think sysinternals shows a lot of GPU utilization. It allows me to check for some of the options here. Allow you to select for performance, quality, or default, and power savings. I have it set to power savings right now. There is other options like anti-lag, boost, chill, like cut down on the frames per second to save power, so it can do that. What the minimum frames per second, maximum frames per second are allowed. Can do some image sharpening. Some of these, if I click on them, it's going to ask to reboot. So I'm not quite going to go into some of those. But just some of the options that you're allowed to use playing with your graphics acceleration. Said, okay, so if I'm playing a game, I might be doing some of these other options down here. But since I haven't started with a lot of gaming, it is probably unlikely I'm going to fall into it anytime soon, unless there's something equivalent to Tank 8, and then I will probably be playing that all the time. I know that a couple of my brothers, I have 6 younger brothers, and the pair that are twins I can't remember the name of it, but it's an online tank battle game that multi-user, and they will go in, and there are certain tanks that they would like to prefer, and they go into these tank battles, and that's what they do for hours at a time. It's like, I just don't have the time to do those kinds of things, unfortunately. Wish I did, but I just don't have the time. So I'd have to stop doing half a dozen other things instead. So this might possibly be a type of answer for some of you guys that are looking at a Windows 10 that's getting long in the tooth and you need to get a new machine. If you got a monitor and a keyboard and an old pair of speakers, you might be okay with the camera and plug it in and let her rip. Like I said, the only thing I had to do a little bit outside was to invoke the newer version of Windows onto the machine. If I had just waited like maybe a week or two, it probably would have offered me the newer version eventually. But I didn't want to wait too long with this pretty old version. I'm surprised that they even installed a 21H2 on it rather than something like 22 or 23. That's what I expected at a minimum, but that's what they had. So if you get one of these things and you find a newer version of it, let me know, because I'm probably going to get at least 1 or 2 of these things for use in our church office and see how well they work. And other questions? Dennis, you got questions? No questions.
Well, can you clarify
Not until
how,
after tax season.
can you clarify how you brought the old printer drivers and stuff over on that?
What I did was I went to, let me go to that, let me pull up that website first. Let's see, Microsoft, Windows compatibility, no, Windows. Let's see, Windows Update Catalog. That's what I need. Good. All right. I had found this years ago and I kept it because it's a good thing to go to. Okay. So Microsoft Update Catalog. Okay. You can go there and you can search for things, but I'm going to go immediately to the thing that I had used it for. I had searched for HP LaserJet 4000 series PCL. And some of these are, here's like different versions of Windows, and you will not see a Windows 11 in here, but you will find a Windows 10, and you start seeing 1809 or later. So you can see the numbers on here. They're very similar, but some of these are 32-bit, some of them are 64-bit. Okay, so if I click on this, it shows me, and I'm not sure, is it still showing the both of these things here, I hope? Let's see, what is it showing on my share? Let's get rid of that. Okay. It says update details, and let's see what's it. Am I going to tell me what I'm sharing here? Yes, it is sharing it. Okay, good. All right. AMD 64 is 32-bit. Okay, because you will want a 32-bit driver, and here's all of the HP drivers that are in that thing. There is a lot of HP drivers in there. And like I said, I suggest using it. If you get an old version of Windows 11 on a new machine, install the printer driver first before you do your upgrades, because you may end up having to do something else to allow the printer driver to function. I think because I had this thing turned on, and like I said, I downloaded one of these things. If you look at the other ones that are here, this is one. This one is that's an AMD 64. One of these is a 32-bit. AMD 64. Okay. Call me a liar, Edward. There's an x86. That's a 32-bit. With these machines, you're going to want the AMD 64 version. So, and newer is probably the better in this case because it'll be closer to Windows 11. So I'm going to stop share there for a moment, and I'm going to bring up something else that I saw in here. Settings, security. That's not the one I want. Where is that one? This one right here. All right, security at glance. Device protection history. That's not it. Where is the one I want? Core isolation. No, that's not the one. Where's the memory protect? Hold on, let's find it here. No. That's not the one I want. It's going to be in a device security. Bear with me a moment here. I got to try and find the one I'm looking for. That's not it. Account protection, firewall and network, app and browser control, security, core isolation. Ah, here it is. Okay. I had to get to the place where it is to be able to show you where it is. Okay. This is one thing that I noticed is off on this machine, and I think that's what allows me to use that older driver. I have memory integrity turned off. Because I had this driver installed when it brought in 24H2, I think it left it off. If I turn this on, I suspect that my Windows driver will no longer function to the LaserJet because it was a driver designed before they had restrictions on memory address space. And that's what this does. I'm pretty sure that this was one of the things that I think Bob had pointed out to me, that you had to have turn off some of these things, memory integrity, kernel mode, enforced stack protection. I have some of these things under core isolation. Core isolation is under device security, under Windows security. So Windows security, device security, core isolation. Because I have some of these things off, it's allowed me to have that driver installed. And my alternative is to turn this stuff on, be more protective, but then have to go buy a new printer.
Yeah, that's basically been my experience too with some of the Logitech webcam drivers.
Yeah. I mean, there are some legacy drivers. If they didn't make a new driver for it and you have an old device and you want to use it, you're going to have to look into what options I can disable, because same thing happened on Windows 10 though, because Windows 10, some of the drivers, I'm sorry, you can't use that driver here. What do you mean I can't use that driver here? Well, obviously there was a switch like this that kept me from using it. And if a switch had been set to off, it would have said, okay, you understand what you're doing. You have a vulnerability possibly in this driver that nobody has exploited in the 10 years since that, or the 27 years since that driver is created. You're probably safe. Or the only way to utilize some of those or to compromise those drivers is if somebody is physically plugged into your Ethernet network here. Because that's what it may take to do to even utilize some of those things. But that was where I found the HP drivers. But there's other things in that Windows catalog. Windows catalog has a lot of stuff in it in case you're looking for it. So let me pull up that link. Go back here, right here. You can always look here and then search for your stuff. Again, it was more for legacy stuff, but I will publish it here. And it's a place you can look. I mean, you can still keep your old machine too. I mean, there is a thing you could use if you didn't have a printer driver or a machine. And I've done this before. I've left my other machine on the network and then I shared the driver. So I gone into that printer driver on the other machine and they say, share it, and here's its share name. Then I go to my new machine and I told it, the printer is over here. And you can use it through this. And what you used to do on much older versions of Windows, if you picked a DeskJet 550C as the machine name, that was the universal thing, probably as close to what the HP Universal driver is now. But it would allow you to print functionality, including color, to a older HP printer that you didn't have driver support for. That also worked with some of the. There was a time when Hewlett-Packard manufactured printers, and in order to cost reduce the printer, they took some of the logic for the printer operation and migrated it from the printer into the driver. So the driver had more smarts and the printer had less smarts, and you could not use these printers on a network with a Jet Direct because they didn't have enough smarts. They were too stupid because they needed a printer driver that told them how to do their stuff. So those are the printers that you tried to avoid back then because you could not put them on a Jet Direct. Anybody familiar with a Jet Direct? Jet Direct was a device that used to have a old Centronics printer port on it, and you would plug your printer into it, and you'd plug Ethernet on the other side, and this thing would make it an Ethernet-based printer. So you could use a Jet Direct to print to those old style HP inkjets and LaserJet 2s and anything else that did not have a network connection on it. And then you could, that's basically what is in my HP 4000 is a Jet Direct module. It's a card that plugged in, and it's got an Ethernet port on it, and that's how I have Ethernet capability. Is it the fastest Ethernet? No, it's 10 megabit. It's on one section on a router, on a switch plugged into a switch, and it's on the slow switch, the old low slow switch, an old Linksys that does 10/100, and it plugs into the 100/1000, and the other 100/1000 is sitting next to it. So I have 2 gigabit switches, and I have the older 10/100 that feeds this LaserJet. And the reason I didn't want to plug the 10 megabit LaserJet into the gigabit ports is it can slow down the transfer while it's trying to buffer into that printer. And I thought, let it go get buffered into the other switch instead. That seems to work out okay. At some point in time, I will combine those 5 and 8 port gigabit switches and replace it with a single 16 port gigabit switch. But about the same time I do that, I'll be also looking for a 2.5 gigabit switch or a 5 gigabit copper switch if they made those by then. And we're working on those too, and maybe even a 10 gigabits. I need 10 gigabits in my house. Otherwise, I can't get anything done. So, other questions? You all ready for tax season, Dennis?
Working on it.
Yeah, that's my next to do. I have to print out all my stuff and then arrange a visit with my favorite accountant, who is retired, but he has conceded to still conceded to allow me to continue to bring my problems to him. But we trade stuff back and forth. My accountant, he does the taxes, and if he's got a problem with his computer, he gives me a call. One time he had a problem with his HP computer, and it was in tax season. He was in a panic mode. Said, help, anything. So I came over and I looked at his desktop. Was really strange because the desktop didn't have a regular power cord on it. And I'm looking at this, and it's got a laptop power supply plugged into it. And that's what it was. It was a laptop power supply, and it plugged into a special jack in the back of this desktop. I opened it up, and there's a laptop in here. Basically, it's a laptop motherboard, and it ran off of 19 volts, 3 amps, or whatever it was, and it was put into a desktop chassis. Huh. And I checked the connection where it plugged in, and the barrel connector was loose in the back, and I pushed it all the way in, and it's working, magic. But that's the only time I saw a laptop inside of a desktop chassis that somebody cooked up at HP and decided to sell. That's bizarre, but I said, well, in case this power pack ever fails, let me know. I got a whole bunch of them sitting around in the house. Because it's the standard HP power pack that they've designed and used in all of their elite books and some of the old compacts and some of those. I mean, I still have a compact 6910. I bought 3 or 4 of those lying around here. That one of them runs Win 7 just fine, 32-bit, and it's got Easy VPN on it, which is the only thing that I've found that works going into the VPN in our church's router. Tried setting up an open VPN connection, but it just won't connect me to the right part of the network when I can connect, The device can't reach anything. So I'm missing some magic incantation on it that says, hey, when it comes in on OpenVPN, route it here on this subnet. But it's not doing that. So, and it's, of course, none of these things are still under support. They've all been listed as deprecated by their creators. Okay, how are we doing here? Any other questions we got? Or any suggestions that you have for new meetings? Got silence here. I mean, I can try and see what else might be available that you might be interested in looking at. I thought this one was interesting because it solves one problem that a lot of us have, older machines that won't migrate. And Microsoft is still thinking of refusing to deal with this for us. So what's your opportunity is to either look for a Linux version and start putting Linux on some of these old machines and utilizing them, continue to use them that way. You have to have enough memory to do anything with it. One thing I'm considering attempting is running a couple of, like a virtual machine on something like this and seeing how well that works to keep a copy of an old operating system around in case I need access to something that only those things can do. Like this easy VPN problem. I may try and do the old trick with in the sysinternals library. They had a tool that would export your current system to a virtual machine image. And then you could use that virtual machine image on virtual PC or VirtualBox or your choice of virtual machines. Once you make a VHD, you can load it up on just about anybody's virtual emulator. Probably runs on some of the other professional ones as well. Not quite container, but not just this side of container. But you could run a virtual machine and then run the tools inside that as long as they can route through to the network if you still need anything. And you have to keep in mind that if I'm running a compromisable operating system inside of a virtual machine, it's exposed to the internet, you could be compromised. But I know that is how some people have honeypotted some of these scammers when they call and they send you something that says your iPass is expired, or they said your EasyPass is expired. And I think, okay, that's a hint because they don't call it EasyPass in Illinois. So that tells me right away this is a scammer. And they give you a link to click on and do something with. And obviously somebody's going to do this by mistake and get compromised. Well, there are people out there that are just dying to play with these kinds of things. And I remember reading one guy who had done this, where he set up a virtual machine and then ran the link in that virtual machine and called him and toyed with this scammer for the better part of a day. And the scammer's telling him to do this, basically compromising his machine. But it's inside of a virtual machine. And it's honeypotted, so it's sealed off. It's firewalled, so it can't get to his real machine. But he still kept the scammer busy all day, and the scammer never got anything worthwhile anyway. So that if that's what you want to do when you retire, that may be a nice thought. What are you doing? Trolling for scammers.
But didn't you say just a few minutes ago that you can open yourself up to attack? Or
you can if you leave all of the things open. If you firewall them and leave it contained, then it's still in that virtual machine. And if the virtual machine gets compromised, you wipe it out and bring back the backup copy and start again.
But you have to really trust your security if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And
but there's a limit to what you do on the old images anyway. So, yeah.
And you have to keep the host operating system scrupulously updated.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And you, like you say,
if you're using, go ahead.
Like you say, you also must have some kind of container or virtualization and some kind of sandboxing, firewall, etc.
Yeah. And like I said, all those things that I showed you that were off on this machine, they'd all have to be turned on, because you want to make sure if anything goes outside the rails, it'll just vaporize that virtual machine app and then just, not compromise the main computer. But if everything you're running is nothing but a virtualized environment, yeah, you could get away with it too. So, all right. Okay. If there's no other questions, then I will, like I said, if there's any suggestions you have for future meetings, let me know. You have my email address from the meeting, the information. It's edward.keating@outlook. And if there's something you'd really like to see, let me know and I'll see what I can do to put it together. And all right, I guess that's it. We're good for tonight. If there's any other questions, Wayne, you want to see? Just waving by.
Thank you and good night. Just wait.
All right. Hopefully this is what you were looking for. And if you like it, thumbs up on the CCS website. I will make sure that a copy of the video gets sent to the proper people, and we'll get a copy of this on there as well.
Yeah, go to the YouTube channel if you put thumbs up on these.
Yes, that would help. All right. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Stop recording.